We are talking about the unseen price tag attached to years of casual intimacy and endless options. The fundamental struggle women with extensive sexual histories face when they attempt to transition into the stable, monogamous architecture required for long-term commitment and marriage. This isn't about shaming the past. This is about recognizing the indelible psychological and biological imprints that past choices leave on the future. If you are a man of value, stability, and integrity, and you find yourself in the orbit of a woman in her late 20s, 30s, or even early 40s, who intellectually claims she is ready for the serious, settled life, you must understand that her readiness is usually just the surface layer. Beneath that veneer of proclaimed maturity lies a complex infrastructure of learned behaviors, neurological pathways, and emotional expectations that are profoundly hostile to the quiet consistency of partnership. You need to identify the exact mechanisms that struggle with settling down, because commitment requires more than just a declaration. It requires functional attachment. And for women with high body counts, that functionality is often compromised. It's affecting every man attempting to build a secure future. We are all dealing with the consequences of this seismic shift. Tell me, what city are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments so we can recognize the global scope of this phenomenon. Before we dive into the specific 5 factors in detail across this series, we must lay the foundation for the 2 most devastating and often permanent forms of internal damage that undermine marital success: the comparison disease and the destruction of the pair bonding mechanism. These 2 forces act as constant internal saboteurs against stability, making true satisfaction impossible. The first foundational damage is the psychological recalibration known as the comparison disease. When a woman spends her most attractive years, her early 20s to early 30s, in an environment of high options and serial relationships, her brain is neurologically trained to function like a comparison shopper in an endless aisle of choice. Every new encounter, every temporary relationship, provides a surge of novelty, attention, and validation. This is a powerful, highly addictive neurological reward cycle fueled by dopamine. The sheer volume of diverse physical and emotional experiences creates an internalized highlight reel of the best of traits from all previous partners. The charisma of XA, the wealth of XB, the physical performance of XC, and the attention of XD. When she finally enters a stable, long-term commitment, often with a man who offers dependability over excitement, her brain doesn't just switch off that comparison function. That pathway is now deeply entrenched. The stable man she chose, the man who provides the security she suddenly needs, cannot possibly compete with the idealized composite fantasy partner compiled from her past experiences. He seems boring. He doesn't provide the same peak excitement she trained her system to crave. This comparison disease is chronic. She will resent the stability you provide because it came at the cost of the excitement she misses. She will project the perceived flaws of her settled life onto you, her partner, because you represent the end of the journey, the closing of the market, the loss of those endless options. The problem, crucially, is internal. It's the psychological architecture that demands novelty, but the target is always external, the committed partner who failed to measure up to an impossible fantasy. She can want commitment, but she cannot fully enjoy the peace that commitment brings, because her system is still searching for the next dopamine hit, the next upgrade that she instinctively believes is still out there. The second foundational damage is the hot destruction of the pair bonding mechanism. Commitment is not just a social contract, it is a biological and chemical process built on trust, emotional vulnerability, and bonding hormones, primarily oxytocin. Oxytocin is released during intimacy and physical closeness, creating a chemical feedback loop that connects that closeness with emotional security and trust. In a healthy, exclusive long-term relationship, this mechanism strengthens the pair bond over time, making separation painful and stability rewarding. Her brain becomes habituated to releasing oxytocin without the corresponding required commitment. Intimacy is decoupled from security. It's like a neurological tolerance has been built up. The result is that when she finally settles down, she may find herself physically present but emotionally disconnected. The physical act itself might not generate the same deep sense of safety or connection it should. because her body and mind have learned that these acts are transient, low-stakes exchanges. She might struggle with genuine sexual desire for her stable, committed partner, a common complaint, because the type of men who provided her with high-intensity desire in the past were often the exact type of men who were emotionally unavailable and committed to no one. She chose stability when her market value declined, but she cannot emotionally reconcile the stable provider with the men who historically commanded her attraction. You become the man who is chosen by necessity, not by visceral desire, and the damaged pair bonding mechanism reinforces this emotional chasm. This inability to fully bond is a primary driver of marital dissatisfaction and the subsequent breakdown of long-term commitment, often leading to explosive conflict, emotional distancing, or eventually, divorce. These two foundational damages, the chronic comparison disease and the impaired pair bonding capacity, are the root causes of the 5 specific struggles we will outline. They explain why a woman might intellectually accept a man as a husband while simultaneously resenting his presence, struggling with intimacy, feeling chronically bored, and retaining an internal exit strategy when things get tough. Her history didn't just consume her time, it fundamentally altered her internal operating system for relationships. When she tells you that she's changed, you must look past the performance and examine the deep-seated psychological infrastructure. Did she restore her pair bonding capacity? Or is she simply performing the role of the devoted wife because she urgently requires the resources, stability, and child production partnership you offer? This is the tragic mistake. You are being chosen as a solution to her closing biological window and declining market options, not as a prize that she fought to keep when her options were abundant. The high body count woman struggles with long-term commitment because the long-term requires patience, loyalty, non-comparison, emotional vulnerability, and a deep, intrinsic feeling that the grass is greener right where you are. Her history has trained her to value the exact opposite: novelty, exit strategies, emotional distance, and the belief that the next option is always better. Overcoming that programming is rare, difficult, and usually requires far more self-reflection and accountability than most people are willing to undertake. We need to detail the specific behavioral patterns that flow from this damage, the concrete ways in which comparison disease and damaged bonding capacity manifest as instability in a marriage. If you are assessing a potential long-term partner, understanding these internal mechanisms is your only defense against making a decade-long mistake. It is a shield against the narratives that attempt to manipulate your emotions and resources. You must learn to trust pattern recognition over temporary promises. In the comments section, I want you to share a phrase that serves as your internal rule against settling for performance over reality. Maybe your phrase is, "I choose patterns, not promises." Or perhaps it's, "Desperation is not desire." Drop your phrase below and join the collective intelligence of men who see the truth. Make sure you subscribe and activate those notifications. This channel exists to provide the raw, unfiltered truth that the system actively suppresses, ensuring you have the data needed to make decisions that protect your future and legacy. You're going to learn the truth about why she can never truly let go of her past and why you will never be her genuine emotional equal. It's essential viewing for any man considering commitment. Let me sharpen the lens and zoom in on the specific psychological damage that makes long-term commitment a near impossible task for women who have prioritized short-term excitement and abundance throughout their peak reproductive years. Forget the social narrative for a moment. We are talking about the mechanics of the human brain and the consequences of conditioning. This isn't about her intentionally being manipulative, though the outcome feels that way. This is about her neurological pathways being wired for constant comparative shopping. Every dating app, every social gathering, every unsolicited message confirmed her high market value. Her mind was trained by the sheer volume of choices to believe that satisfaction was always one swipe, one breakup, one new partner away. Now she's trying to commit to you, the stable, responsible, consistent man. And suddenly, consistency feels like a massive, suffocating bore. The stability you offer registers not as security, but as a lack of excitement, a deficit of the high-energy validation she grew accustomed to. She has developed what psychologists refer to as comparison disease. Her mental catalogue of sexual and relational experiences is constantly open, And every time you falter, every minor argument, every difference in opinion, every time you fail to meet her heightened expectations, her brain immediately pulls up the highlight reel of past, more exciting partners. These memories are often romanticized, stripped of the negative realities that actually caused those relationships to fail. The bad boy, who used her for a month but gave her incredible emotional highs, is remembered as passionate. The ambitious but emotionally unavailable executive is remembered as driven. You, the man paying the mortgage and remembering her mother's birthday, are simply nice or safe. And in her mind, nice and safe are not emotionally satisfying replacements for passion and thrill. This is the hidden struggle of the woman with an extensive history trying to commit. She feels perpetually unsettled, haunted by the specter of the men she could have had, or the men she chose not to settle down with. This constant low-level dissatisfaction translates into deep-seated resentment, directed almost exclusively at you. Before we dissect the mechanics of this resentment further, tell me, where are you processing this information right now? Understanding these complex patterns requires a clear perspective, and knowing where our community of informed men is located helps us connect these truths across the map. Now, let's look at how this comparison disease destroys the cornerstone of long-term commitment, the capacity for pair bonding. These hormones are released during physical and emotional intimacy and serve to cement a deep, exclusive bond with one specific individual. For this process to function optimally, the system requires consistency and exclusivity. Every time she bonds intensely with a new partner during sex, her brain is rehearsing a cycle of attachment followed by detachment. She trains her system to release the bonding hormones, but then quickly cut the cord and move on to the next source of stimulation. After years of this pattern, the anchor doesn't stick anymore. Her system becomes desensitized or even defensive. What you receive is not authentic, committed connection. You receive what we call duty intimacy. It is physical closeness performed out of obligation, a necessary step toward the security you provide, but it lacks the genuine soul-level attachment that defines a fulfilling marriage. She struggles to be fully present, fully vulnerable, or fully invested because her history has taught her that emotional distance is safer and keeps her options mentally open. The physical act is merely a transaction, not a true merger. This is reason number 3, why high body count women struggle with commitment. Their conflict resolution skills are undermined by the learned behavior of exit. In a healthy long-term commitment, conflict is inevitable. Couples who stay together learn to tolerate discomfort, navigate profound differences, and invest emotional energy in repair rather than escape. This requires emotional maturity, patience, and the fundamental belief that the partner is irreplaceable. Why would she spend 6 difficult months working through a core disagreement with a man when she knows she could spend 6 exciting weeks starting fresh with a new, equally high-status man who is temporarily conflict-free? Her entire dating history reinforces a simple, destructive lesson. When things get difficult, you don't fix it, you replace it. By the time she reaches her late 30s and enters the "I'm ready now" phase, this exit strategy reflex is deeply ingrained. She brings that instability into the marriage, even if she claims to want permanence. You will see this manifest in terrifyingly common ways. Instead, she weaponizes the threat of leaving. She withdraws emotionally, she suggests the marriage might be over, she mentions how much easier life was before you, or she even hints at the existence of past or current orbiters. She always had an escape hatch, and when the marriage begins to feel like work, the way all long-term relationships eventually feel, she experiences profound cognitive dissonance. She feels trapped by the very commitment she strategically pursued. Let's move on to the 4th critical reason, which connects directly to the psychological trauma of settling: persistent entitlement and unrealistic expectations. When she commits to the stable, provider man, who is often good but rarely the alpha figure she chased in her youth, she doesn't lower her expectations to match her new choice. She maintains the entitlement level earned during her peak market value years, while demanding commitment from a man she may not genuinely desire. She expects you to provide the stability, resources, and emotional safety of the beta provider, while simultaneously delivering the excitement, charisma, and status of the alpha entertainer she used to date. She demands constant emotional labor from you to compensate for her internal emotional shortfall. You must make her feel chosen, desired, and thrilled, even though she settled for you out of necessity. If you show normal human flaws, you are immediately compared, judged, and criticized relentlessly. This is the ultimate transaction failure. The stability you offer is the reward she seeks, but your presence is the daily reminder of the fun she had to give up and the high-status men who rejected her for commitment. Consider the reality of her expectations regarding resources and lifestyle. She internalizes that lifestyle as the minimum standard she deserves, but now she expects you, the husband, to fund that lifestyle and also provide a stable home, security, and emotional labor. She settles for stability, but secretly resents the lack of lifestyle compared to her past. This relentless comparison means she moves the goalposts constantly, making it impossible for you to ever feel like you are enough, because you are trying to compete with an idealized version of her past without the benefit of being her authentic first choice. This brings us to the fifth element that defines this struggle, the illusion of transformation. The core struggle is that the women who pursue commitment in their late 30s are not fundamentally transformed. They are tactically repositioned. They talk about wanting traditional values. They might take up baking. They might moderate their dressing style. But the underlying psychological structure, the comparison disease, the exit reflex, the difficulty with true bonding, remains intact. This illusion is highly effective because men are genetically wired to believe a woman when she signals a desire for family and commitment. We want to believe the performance is genuine transformation. That is a devastating delusion. Her current performance is not driven by love for you. It is driven by a profound, primal fear of being 45 and childless. You committed to the performance, but you married the reality. A reality defined by emotional distance, lingering resentment, and a history that has predisposed her to exit the moment real life demands real work. This isn't misogyny. This is pattern recognition built on the observable outcomes of millions of relationship trajectories. Understanding this damage is the first and most critical step in protecting your future. She stops prioritizing your relationship. She begins to view your stability as a cage, and the excitement she sacrificed comes rushing back in the form of emotional hunger. This is why recognizing the difference between being chosen and being settled for is the most valuable insight you will ever gain. The resentment from settling is a poison that guarantees marital decay. So how do we solidify this understanding? We need a clear, actionable phrase to encapsulate this truth. To show the algorithm that this information is necessary, mandatory, and urgently needed by men across the globe, I need to see your engagement right now. You just processed the deep mechanics of the hypergamy hangover. You are here because you value reality over performance. Therefore, for the community, write this exact phrase in the comments right now to confirm you understand the distinction. I recognize the difference. Solution, not desire. Drop it below. We are building a community defined by clarity and informed decision-making. Subscribe to the channel right now. Join the ranks of men who choose pattern recognition over emotional risk. The 5 reasons high body count women struggle with commitment are complex, but the final, most devastating consequence is the loss of personal sovereignty. Next, we will dismantle the final stages of this destructive cycle. You need this protection. The information coming is not optional. We have laid out the mechanics. Now we arrive at the critical junction. This is where the patterns stop being theories and start becoming your reality. If you didn't heed that warning in the last segments, listen now, because we are moving past recognition and into consequence. This is the definitive conclusion, the final truth about why high body count women struggle profoundly with long-term commitment, often unknowingly dragging the men who choose them into that struggle. We are ending this discussion today with the final, unavoidable choice you must make. Before we finalize this devastating blueprint, I need to know where this message is landing. The ultimate reason that women with extensive histories struggle with long-term commitment is that the man they finally commit to is, by definition, the compromise. He represents the life they settled for, not the fantasy they spent their peak years chasing. And that difference is the gasoline that fuels divorce and lifelong marital dissatisfaction. When a woman marries the man who is her settlement option, she faces an internal dissonance that destroys stability from the inside out. Suddenly, she shifts to a man, often stable, predictable, and genuinely good, who provides the security, but lacks the chaotic magnetism or high-status thrill she spent a decade internalizing as the definition of attraction. Her brain, conditioned by years of dopamine spikes from unstable relationships, perceives stability as boredom, routine as constraint, and safety as stifling. The most insidious consequence of this comparison disease is the emergence of chronic, corrosive resentment. She resents you because, in her mind, you are the living, breathing evidence that she failed to secure the life she believed she deserved during her period of peak value. Every time she looks at you, she is reminded of the clock she ran out, the options she squandered, and the life path she abandoned out of necessity. You see it in the withholding of genuine, enthusiastic intimacy. The sexual dynamic often becomes transactional, a duty performed to maintain the relationship and secure resources, rather than an expression of authentic, burning desire. He is paying the premium price for the leftovers of her romantic history. Furthermore, the extensive history of casual relationships fundamentally compromises her ability to resolve conflict and navigate partnership challenges maturely. She spent years learning that when a relationship became inconvenient, boring, or difficult, she simply found a new partner who offered a temporary hit of excitement and ease. She never developed the foundational skills required for long-term commitment: patience, grace under pressure, genuine compromise, and the emotional resilience to repair rupture rather than abandon ship. In a marriage, this means she meets conflict not with negotiation, but with threats of abandonment, emotional withdrawal, or immediate ultimatums. She has low tolerance for boredom and low tolerance for pain, two things that are inevitable components of a long and committed partnership. The stable man, recruited to provide security, finds himself living in a state of perpetual instability, terrified of triggering the next manufactured crisis that will remind him of her learned ease of exit. We must speak directly to the core psychological wound that she brings into the marriage: entitlement. A woman who commanded high attention throughout her 20s and early 30s develops a severe sense of entitlement regarding the quality of attention, resources, and emotional labor she expects from her partner. She believes she deserves the commitment, stability, and provider capacity of a high-value man without having to offer the genuine desire, youth, enthusiasm, or clean slate that those men typically seek. She expects maximum output from you for her minimal compelled input. This entitlement surfaces as relentless criticism. If you are stable, you are boring. If you are kind, you are weak. She constantly seeks to elevate herself and diminish you because deep down, she needs to justify why she is settling for a man she wouldn't have looked at 5 years prior. By criticizing you, she subconsciously absolves herself of the responsibility for her own previous choices that led her to this necessary compromise. This brings us to the final devastating reality for the man who marries into this dynamic. You are not her destination, you are her emergency vehicle. And once the crisis is averted, once the house is secured, the wedding photos are taken, and perhaps a child is born, the need for the emergency vehicle diminishes.
The traditional feminine behaviors that she displayed during the "I'm ready now" phase, the sudden interest in domesticity, the supportive posture, the embrace of stability, were strategic positioning designed to secure the commitment.
They were temporary masks worn for the duration of the recruitment process. Once the commitment is secured, the mask comes off, and the highly independent, high-agency, comparison-prone woman from her 20s re-emerges, often with a renewed, and now institutionally protected, dissatisfaction. You see this in the sudden resurgence of career focus post-marriage, the quick abandonment of traditional roles, and the increased energy directed outward rather than into the marital bond. She secured the insurance policy, the husband, and is now free to pursue the excitement she settled without, often leading to emotional affairs, physical infidelity, or a deliberate creation of distance designed to trigger a conflict that allows her the emotional high of an escape or confrontation. The harsh truth is that the capacity for genuine pair bonding, for deep, non-comparative commitment, requires years of reinforcement and intentional practice. A life history spent maximizing short-term pleasure and transactional intimacy severely degrades this capacity. You are not marrying a woman who has genuinely changed. You are marrying a woman who is currently running away from the consequences of her past choices, using your stability as her shield. How do you, the stable, high-value man, protect yourself from becoming this sacrificial lamb to her biological and psychological panic? The signals are always clear, but men often choose to ignore them because they fear being alone, or because they succumb to the pressure of the accelerated timeline. Revisit the 5 crucial markers defining the settlement option dynamic. The shift in acceptability. You are being pursued now only because better options have vanished. Acknowledge that her attraction to you is born of convenience, not genuine magnetism. The pressure cooker. Timeline. Any woman demanding exclusivity, engagement, and reproduction timelines within a compressed, unnatural window is prioritizing the biological clock over the genuine connection with you. Her urgency is a debt she incurred years ago. 3. If it looks too perfect, it is a lie. 4. She is protecting the transaction. Your choice is not to fix her, because you cannot fix the accumulated consequence of a decade of specific choices. Your choice is about managing your own risk. Wise men understand that relationship history is the most reliable predictor of future relationship success. The culture calls this scrutiny cruel. We call it essential due diligence. Refuse to be rushed. Allow the performance to drop by extending the dating period past the point of her biological or social urgency. Never commit your resources to someone who views you as acceptable by default. You deserve a partner who chooses you enthusiastically and authentically, whose presence makes her feel grateful, not resentful. The cost of ignoring this reality is the destruction of your marriage, the loss of your assets in a contentious divorce, and years spent co-parenting with a woman who secretly resents you for being the safe harbor she was forced to dock in. You see this pattern everywhere. It's time to mark your territory and confirm this reality for others. Prove you see the matrix. Type the phrase, "I walked away," in the comments right now. We deliver the painful truths that save you years of financial and emotional damage. You recognize the value of this crucial knowledge, so you must click that like button now to signal you demand more truth. You are not leaving your future to chance. Our work here is never finished. Get ready for the next level of brutal honesty.